Ground beef used to be a staple in kitchens everywhere, forming the base of countless comforting and creative dishes. But over time, some of these recipes have faded from family tables, leaving behind fond memories and untapped potential for nostalgic flavor. Let's look at 25 of these ground beef recipes that have disappeared from kitchens and tables. Hamburg steak with mushroom gravy.
Guys, how to make southern hamburger steak. Now,
let's start with Hamburg steak with mushroom gravy, a dish that once epitomized hearty home-cooked meals. This recipe has its roots in the 19th century, originating from German immigrants who brought the idea of a Hamburg-style steak to the United States. Essentially, it's a seasoned ground beef patty, pan-seared to a golden brown, and smothered in a rich mushroom gravy. To make it, ground beef is mixed with breadcrumbs, eggs, and Worcestershire sauce, then shaped into oval patties. These are browned in a skillet before being simmered in a gravy made from sautéed mushrooms, onions, beef broth, and a touch of cream or flour for thickening. The result is a dish with robust, savory flavors that pair beautifully with mashed potatoes or buttered noodles. While its modern cousin, the Salisbury steak, became more popular, Hamburg steak with mushroom gravy is slightly simpler and retains a rustic charm. It evokes a sense of simpler times when meals were made from scratch and leftovers were cherished. From here, let's move on to another variation of beef patties, which brought its own unique history and flavor to the table. Salisbury steak.
Salisbury steak done right here in the test kitchen.
Salisbury steak is the sophisticated cousin of Hamburg steak, named after Dr. James H. Salisbury, who promoted it in the late 19th century as a health food. His goal was to create a dish that was nutritious and easy to digest during the Civil War. While its origins may have been rooted in science, this dish quickly became a dinner-time staple for its flavor and versatility. To prepare Salisbury steak, ground beef is combined with breadcrumbs, egg, onion, and spices like garlic powder and black pepper. Shaped into oval patties, they're seared to create a crispy crust, then simmered in a savory brown gravy made from beef broth, onions, and often a splash of tomato paste for depth. This dish pairs perfectly with creamy mashed potatoes and steamed vegetables, making it a complete comfort meal. Although it gained widespread popularity thanks to frozen TV dinners in the 50s, Salisbury steak has since faded as more exotic cuisines captured the public's attention. Up next is a dish which showcases a flavorful blend of beef and paprika. Goulash.
Goulash. I just love the comfort that this dish brings.
A hearty stew with Hungarian roots, goulash is a centuries-old dish that combines ground beef with bold spices and a medley of vegetables. Originally prepared by Hungarian herdsmen in the Middle Ages, goulash became popular in America during the mid-20th century as a quick and satisfying meal. To make American-style goulash, ground beef is browned with garlic and onion, then simmered with tomatoes, tomato paste, paprika, and Italian seasonings. Elbow macaroni is often cooked directly in the sauce, absorbing the rich flavors and creating a one-pot dish that's easy to prepare and serve. Traditional Hungarian goulash uses chunks of beef, but the ground beef version made it accessible and affordable for everyday families. This dish was a staple in church potlucks and family gatherings, bringing a sense of warmth and connection to the table. Speaking of family favorites, up next is a nostalgic meal that defined countless childhood lunches. Sloppy Joes.
Sloppy Joes. That's right, the cafeteria classic.
Sloppy Joes are the messy, tangy, and undeniably delicious sandwiches that became a hit in America during the 1930s. Thought to have originated in Sioux City, Iowa, this dish was named after the sloppy nature of the filing, a mix of ground beef and sauce stuffed into a hamburger bun. To make them, ground beef is browned and simmered with ketchup, mustard, Worcestershire sauce, and a touch of brown sugar, creating a sweet and tangy blend. Some versions add diced onions and green peppers for extra flavor and texture. The key is the sauce, which coats the beef and seeps into the bun for that perfect bite. Sloppy Joes gained traction during the Great Depression for their affordability and ease of preparation. They were often served at diners and school lunches, where their casual charm made them a favorite. We now move on to a more complex combination of flavors, a fusion of chili and pasta that became a dinner table favorite. Chili mac.
Today we're gonna make chili mac. This is a delicious comfort food meal.
Chili mac is where comfort food meets culinary creativity, combining hearty chili with macaroni for a dish that's as filling as it is flavorful. This recipe emerged in the mid-20th century as a budget-friendly way to stretch ingredients and please the whole family. Ground beef forms the base, browned with onions and garlic before being mixed with canned tomatoes, beans, chili powder, and other spices. Cooked macaroni is stirred in toward the end, creating a one-pot meal that's creamy, savory, savory and slightly spicy. Some versions add shredded cheese on top, baked until bubbly for an irresistible finish. Chili mac is the perfect example of how American families turned simple ingredients into something extraordinary. It was often served at community gatherings, embodying the spirit of sharing and togetherness. Next, another dish takes center stage that's equally nostalgic. Meatloaf.
Classic family meatloaf. Here we go.
Few dishes are as iconic as meatloaf, a quintessential comfort food with roots dating back to ancient Rome. It is a cousin to the meatball in Dutch cuisine. North American meatloaf has its origins in scrapple, a mixture of ground pork and cornmeal served by German Americans in Pennsylvania since colonial times. Modern meatloaf, however, became a household staple during the Great Depression when stretching ground beef with breadcrumbs and other fillers helped families survive tough times. The recipe starts with ground beef mixed with breadcrumbs, eggs, milk, and seasonings like onion, garlic, and parsley. This mixture is shaped into a loaf, often topped with a tangy ketchup glaze, and baked to perfection. The result is a tender, flavorful slice of nostalgia. Meatloaf's adaptability made it a favorite across generations. Some families added grated vegetables for moisture, while others experimented with cheese or different spices. It was a dish that reflected personal taste and resourcefulness. Next on our journey is a layered creation that combines ground beef with mashed potatoes in a hearty casserole. Shepherd's pie.
That is just so comforting and special, and it's simpler than you think, and the flavors are just, It is
Shepherd's pie is a dish of British origin, dating back to the late 18th century when frugal homemakers used leftover roasted meat to create new meals. Traditionally made with lamb, hence the shepherd in the name, its Americanized counterpart often substituted ground beef, creating a comforting casserole that became a favorite on family tables. This recipe begins with ground beef cooked in a rich gravy, flavored with onions, garlic, carrots, and peas. The mixture is spread into a baking dish and topped with creamy mashed potatoes, which are smoothed into an even layer or piped for a decorative touch. After baking, the top becomes golden and slightly crispy, providing a contrast to the savory filling beneath. Shepherd's pie was cherished for its ability to stretch ingredients and provide a complete meal in one dish. Our next dish is often confused with shepherd's pie and shares many similarities, but boasts its own unique flair. Cottage pie.
Today we're making cottage pie, and you'll definitely need a nap after you eat this one.
Like shepherd's pie, cottage pie is a hearty, layered dish, but the main difference lies in its original filling, beef instead of lamb. Named for the cottages of rural farmers in 18th century England, this recipe was a way to repurpose leftover meat and stretch ingredients. Ground beef is cooked with onions, carrots, and sometimes celery, then simmered in a tomato-based gravy. This mixture is topped with mashed potatoes, often enriched with butter or cheese, and baked until the edges are bubbling and the topping is golden. Cottage pie became a staple in the United States during the early 20th century as an affordable yet satisfying meal. Its versatility allowed families to adapt the ingredients based on what was on hand, making it a timeless comfort food. Up next is a Tex-Mex classic that packs a flavorful punch. Chili con carne.
Hi guys, it's Warren here, and here is my recipe for homemade beef chili con carne.
Chili con carne, or chili with meat, is a Tex-Mex dish with roots in the 1800s. Originating in Texas, it was a favorite among cowboys and trail cooks who needed a hearty, long-lasting meal during cattle drives. While traditional chili uses chunks of beef, ground beef became a popular adaptation in modern households. This dish starts with ground beef browned alongside onions and garlic. Chili powder, cumin, and paprika add depth, while tomatoes and beans, though controversial in Texas-style chili, create a hearty base. Simmered slowly, the flavors meld together into a spicy, savory stew that's perfect with cornbread or over rice. Chili con carne gained fame during the 20th century, thanks to chili parlors and home cooks alike. Its bold flavors and warming nature made it a go-to dish during colder months. We now move on to a dish made with a touch of understated elegance. Beef Wellington.
Beef Wellington is one of those dishes everybody knows about.
Beef Wellington may seem like a dish reserved for fine dining, but during the mid-20th century, an economical ground beef version brought this elegant recipe to everyday kitchens. Traditionally, it features a beef tenderloin coated in mushroom duxelles and wrapped in puff pastry, but the ground beef iteration became a clever way to mimic the flavors on a budget. To prepare, seasoned ground beef is mixed with onions, garlic, and spices, then shaped into a loaf. It's wrapped in pastry dough, often with a layer of mushroom filling or pâté, and baked until golden. The result is a flaky, flavorful crust encasing savory beef. This adaptation brought a touch of sophistication to dinner tables without the high cost of tenderloin. Its popularity waned over time, but its legacy remains in the creativity of mid-century cooks. Next, we take a trip down memory lane with a fun and filling dish beloved by children and adults alike. Tater tots casserole.
Hey, we're talking about an old classic, tater tot casserole.
Tater tots casserole, often called hot dish in the Midwest, is a dish that defined comfort food for families in the 50s and 60s. It emerged as an affordable, filling meal made from pantry staples, quickly becoming a potluck and family dinner staple. The recipe begins with ground beef, browned and seasoned with onion, garlic, and salt. A creamy sauce, often made from condensed cream of mushroom soup, is stirred in, creating a savory base. This mixture is spread into a baking dish, topped with a layer of sweet peas or green beans, and crowned with a layer of crispy tater tots. Once baked, the tots become golden and crunchy, contrasting with the creamy filling beneath. This casserole was a lifesaver for busy parents, combining protein, vegetables, and starch in one easy dish. It's nostalgic and comforting, harking back to simpler times. Up next is a dish that showcases the versatility of ground beef in stuffed vegetables. Stuffed kohlrabi.
I'm gonna share today my stuffed kohlrabi soup recipe.
Stuffed kohlrabi is a lesser-known dish with European roots, particularly in Germany and Eastern Europe, where kohlrabi, a bulbous, mild-tasting vegetable, is a kitchen staple. While it might seem exotic today, this recipe was once a clever way to elevate ground beef and use seasonal produce. To prepare, kohlrabi bulbs are hollowed out and parboiled to tenderize them. Meanwhile, ground beef is sautéed with onions, garlic, and seasonings like nutmeg or paprika. The hollowed kohlrabi is stuffed with the beef mixture, topped with breadcrumbs and cheese, and baked until golden. Some variations include a light tomato or cream sauce poured over the dish for added moisture and flavor. This recipe was a favorite for its balance of hearty meat and fresh vegetables. It introduced a bit of sophistication to everyday cooking, bridging the gap between rustic and refined. Now we travel stateside for a Midwestern casserole with a story as unique as its name. Johnny Marzetti.
Good afternoon. We are making Johnny Marzetti, one of our favorites from home.
Johnny Marzetti is a beloved casserole with deep roots in Ohio, specifically the Marzetti restaurant in Columbus. In the early 1900s, Teresa Marzetti named the dish after her brother-in-law, and it quickly became a crowd pleaser for its affordability and rich flavors. The dish starts with ground beef browned with onions and bell peppers, mixed with cooked macaroni and coated in a tomato-based sauce. Often mushrooms and a generous handful of cheese are added before the mixture is baked until bubbling and golden. The result is a gooey, comforting casserole perfect for family dinners. Johnny Marzetti gained popularity across the Midwest as a school lunch and potluck favorite, but its fame waned as modern cuisine diversified. Next is a handheld pastry filled with spiced ground beef that hails from Spanish and Latin American culinary traditions. Beef empanadas.
Today I'm going to share with you guys how to make some delicious ground beef empanadas. In case you guys want to know how to make this super easy and delicious recipe, just stay tuned and I'll show you how.
Beef empanadas are a testament to the ingenuity of Spanish and Latin American cuisine, blending savory fillings with flaky pastry. Originally a portable meal for workers, these hand pies became a cherished dish in households and festivals. The filling is made by sautéing ground beef with onions, garlic, cumin, and paprika. Olives, raisins, and hard-boiled eggs are sometimes added for a mix of sweet, salty, and savory flavors. The mixture is spooned onto rounds of pastry dough, folded into half moons, and sealed with a decorative crimp. Once baked or fried, the empanadas boast a golden crust and flavorful interior. These versatile pastries were a hit at family gatherings and celebrations, offering a taste of home and heritage. We now move to another casserole-style dish that combined convenience and comfort. Ground beef and biscuit bake. Ground beef and biscuit bake was a mid-20th century favorite, loved for its simplicity and ability to feed a crowd. Combining hearty ground beef and fluffy biscuits, it was a one-dish meal that became synonymous with comfort food in American households. The recipe begins with ground beef browned alongside onions, garlic, and bell peppers, then simmered with tomato sauce or diced tomatoes to create a savory filling. This mixture is poured into a baking dish and topped with pre-made or homemade biscuit dough. As it bakes, the biscuits rise rise, becoming golden and flaky, while absorbing some of the flavorful juices below. Some variations included shredded cheese or a sprinkling of herbs for extra flavor. This dish was a weeknight lifesaver, offering a complete filling meal with minimal prep. Its versatility allowed for easy adaptations based on what was in the pantry. Up next is another stuffed dish, a recipe that married health-conscious cooking with the indulgence of ground beef. Stuffed zucchini boats.
Stuffed zucchini boats are an easy, healthy, high-protein, fiber-filled, low-carbohydrate dinner idea that is perfect for meal prep and a lovely way to enjoy some seasonal zucchini, although you could definitely enjoy this recipe all year round.
Stuffed zucchini boats were a staple in the 70s when home gardeners had an abundance of zucchini. This dish cleverly transformed the humble squash into a flavorful, visually appealing meal. To make these, zucchini are halved lengthwise and hollowed out to create boats. The filling consists of ground beef mixed with sautéed onions, garlic, tomatoes, and a hint of Italian seasoning. Some recipes incorporated breadcrumbs or rice for added texture, along with grated cheese for richness. The filled zucchini are baked until tender and bubbling, offering a dish that's both nutritious and satisfying. Stuffed zucchini boats became a symbol of the era's focus on fresh, wholesome ingredients, while still providing the hearty flavors families love. Next is a classic, heartwarming dish steeped in European tradition. Cabbage rolls. Cabbage rolls, or golubki in Polish, have been a comforting dish in Eastern European households for centuries. When they made their way to the U.S., home cooks adopted them, often using ground beef to create an affordable, flavorful version. Large cabbage leaves are blanched to soften, then filled with a mixture of ground beef, cooked rice, onions, and seasonings. The rolls are arranged in a baking dish, often layered with sauerkraut or a tangy tomato sauce, and baked until tender. The steaming process melds the flavors, resulting in a savory, slightly tangy dish that's perfect for family gatherings. Cabbage rolls were especially popular in colder months, offering a warm, satisfying meal with a touch of old-world charm. Let's now move on to another dish that brought new life to leftovers. Old-fashioned beef hash. Old-fashioned beef hash was a classic way to transform leftover ground beef into a hearty breakfast or dinner. Its roots lie in the frugal cooking traditions of 19th century America, where hashing ingredients ensured nothing went to waste. To prepare, ground beef is sautéed with diced potatoes, onions, and bell peppers until everything is golden and crispy. Often seasoned with salt, pepper, and paprika, this dish was sometimes topped with a fried egg for an extra layer of richness. It could be served with ketchup or hot sauce, depending on regional preferences. Beef hash was beloved for its simplicity and versatility, offering a comforting option for any meal of the day. Up next is a twist on an iconic dish which redefined a timeless classic. Meatloaf with crackers.
Hi guys, today's recipe is a delicious, light and fluffy meatloaf, and to use as a binder and also a lightener, saltine crackers.
Meatloaf with crackers is a nostalgic twist on the traditional meatloaf that graced countless family tables in the mid-20th century. While breadcrumbs were the standard binding ingredient, home cooks often swapped them out for crushed saltine crackers, creating a lighter texture and a subtly salty flavor. The recipe begins with ground beef mixed with finely chopped onions, eggs, ketchup, Worcestershire sauce, and crushed crackers. This mixture is shaped into a loaf, glazed with a mixture of ketchup and brown sugar, and baked to perfection. The crackers not only add a unique taste, but also help retain moisture, resulting in a tender, flavorful meatloaf. This version of meatloaf was beloved for its adaptability, as families could enhance it with cheese, herbs, or even a layer of ham or bacon. Its enduring appeal lies in its simplicity and comforting flavors. Up next is a dish that turned ground beef into a hearty bowl of warmth. Hamburger soup.
Today I'm making an easy, versatile, one-pot dinner, hamburger soup.
Hamburger soup is a classic pantry meal that brought comfort to families during leaner times. Emerging in the 50s, this soup was an affordable way to create a wholesome meal from ground beef and basic vegetables. The soup starts with ground beef browned in a pot with onions and garlic. Diced carrots, celery, and potatoes are added, along with canned tomatoes, beef broth, and seasonings like thyme and bay leaves. As it simmers, the flavors meld into a rich, savory broth. Some versions also included pasta or barley for extra heartiness. Hamburger soup was a favorite for its versatility. Families could use whatever vegetables or spices they had on hand. It was especially popular in colder months, offering a warming and nutritious meal. Next on our list is a dish with a curious name. Porcupine meatballs.
Porcupine meatballs, a budget recipe that's been around since or before the Great Depression. Yes, dollar-friendly, easy to make, freezable, and delicious.
Porcupine meatballs, a quirky dish with Depression-era origins, were a clever way to stretch ground beef while creating a hearty, satisfying meal. The porcupine name comes from the rice in the meatballs, which sticks out like spines when cooked. The meatballs are made by mixing ground beef with uncooked rice, onions, eggs, and seasonings such as garlic powder and parsley. They are then simmered in a tomato-based sauce, allowing the rice to cook and absorb the flavors of the sauce. The result is tender meatballs with a unique texture and flavor. Porcupine meatballs became a popular family meal in the mid-20th century, thanks to their affordability and fun presentation. We move to yet another Tex-Mex favorite that brought bold flavors to the table: beef enchilada casserole.
Today we're going to be making a super easy and delicious ground beef enchilada casserole.
Beef enchilada casserole is a deconstructed take on traditional enchiladas, combining all the rich flavors of the classic Mexican dish in a convenient, family-friendly bake. This dish gained popularity in the 70s as an easy way to enjoy Tex-Mex flavors at home. Ground beef is cooked with onions, garlic, and chili powder, then layered in a casserole dish with tortillas, enchilada sauce, and shredded cheese. Some variations include refried beans, olives, or green chilies for extra flavor. Once baked, the casserole becomes a gooey, spicy masterpiece, perfect for serving with sour cream and guacamole. This recipe's simplicity and adaptability made it a favorite for busy weeknights and potlucks. Now let's move on to a dish that combined European elegance with everyday convenience: ground beef stroganoff over rice. Ground beef stroganoff over rice is a budget-friendly adaptation of the classic Russian dish that became a household favorite in mid-century America. While traditional stroganoff uses strips of beef and egg noodles, this version relies on ground beef and rice, making it more accessible and affordable. The dish begins with ground beef browned alongside onions and mushrooms, creating a savory base. A rich sauce is made by adding sour cream, beef broth, and a touch of Worcestershire sauce. Some variations include a sprinkle of paprika for warmth or a splash of white wine for depth. Once the sauce thickens, it's poured over a bed of fluffy white rice. This creamy, comforting dish was a hit for its ease of preparation and satisfying flavors. It became a weeknight staple for busy families, offering a taste of sophistication without the fuss. We now turn to a hearty and spicy dish that warms both the stomach and the soul: beef and bean chili.
Let's make some beef and bean chili.
Beef and bean chili is a Tex-Mex classic that has graced family tables for over a century. Originating in the American Southwest, chili was initially a simple stew made with dried chilies and meat, but ground beef and beans were later added to stretch the dish for larger families. Ground beef is browned with onions, garlic, and chili powder before being simmered with tomatoes, kidney beans, and a medley of spices like cumin and oregano. Some recipes include a dash of cocoa or cinnamon for a deeper flavor profile. Served with cornbread or tortilla chips, this chili is both hearty and versatile, perfect for a cold day or a casual gathering. Beef and bean chili's enduring popularity lies in its adaptability, as families can customize the spice level and add their favorite toppings, from shredded cheese to sour cream. We close out our list with a simple yet satisfying dish that brought comfort to many tables: beef and potato casserole.
I've got ground beef and russet potatoes, so I'm making a ground beef potato casserole. It's simple to make and it's so good.
Beef and potato casserole is a layered masterpiece that exemplifies the beauty of simple ingredients. This dish, often considered a Depression-era classic, uses ground beef, potatoes, and a creamy sauce to create a hearty, oven-baked meal. The recipe starts with ground beef cooked with onions and garlic, seasoned with salt, pepper, and paprika. Thinly sliced potatoes are layered in a casserole dish, alternating with the beef mixture. A creamy sauce made from milk or condensed soup is poured over the layers, and the dish is topped with shredded cheese or breadcrumbs. Baked until golden and bubbling, the casserole becomes a warm, filling meal that's easy to love. Its popularity stemmed from its ability to feed large families with minimal ingredients. And that concludes our list of ground beef recipes that vanished from the family table. Which foods from the list do you remember from your childhood? Which ones do you think we should have talked about? Tell us in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more nostalgic food journey. Until next time.